My name is Stacy, and I'm a great firm believer in Jesus Christ. I haven't always been that way. I started using drugs when I was 12 years old. A lot of weed, a lot of alcohol, a lot of acid. My mom raised me in church before then, so she tried. I just went a different route. I had very low self esteem, so doing drugs and having sex at a young age just made me feel it boosted my self esteem. My drug use never stopped. In my 20s, I started using hardcore drugs. I started using cocaine intravenously. I it was a whole new love affair. Like, I gave up everything. I gave up my children. I gave up my home. I gave up my job. I gave up my family. I gave up everything. And there was really no turning back, because once like, especially my sons, once I gave them up for dope, you feel so much shame and guilt that you just keep using so you escape reality and numb the pain. I was introduced to meth in maybe 2012. So I no longer used cocaine. It was a lot cheaper. And the high was a lot better. Before I got introduced to meth, I was clean for a period of time, and I had two daughters. And it was one of the happiest times of my life. And but it wasn't long before cocaine was brought into my home, and I knew better. But I was just like, oh, just this one time, and there's no such thing as that. So again, I never say that they took my daughters from me. I gave them up for dope again. And then my life got really crazy. Because I blamed myself. I blamed my ex. I put us both through hell. I was in and out of jail a lot. I was in and out of prison. And this continued. I'm 46 years old, and this behavior continued. I did get married in 2020. And I thought that he was an angel sent from God to save me. And things were great for a while, but it wasn't long until I started relapsing and using dope again. And I loved this man, and I loved our life. So I got down on my knees one night and I begged God to take the taste of drugs out of my mouth. I would go to church and have people pray for me and lay their hands on me. And I would also, even though I was using some days, I would also attend church a lot because I believed in God. Because back in 2013, and I have to share this, I know I forgot to share it a little bit ago, but I had this experience. I lived such a dark life. It was just all in darkness that it was hard for me to see or believe that there was any good in the world. Because just the lifestyle, the drugs, the new people that you meet, how just, I had been up one night, so it had nothing to do with drugs, but I was walking down the street, and this presence of evil, and if you ever experience it, you'll know exactly what it is. It was just a presence of evil from head to toe, and And I started looking around and I seen demonic things, and I just got down on my hands and knees right then. And it was the first time I had ever prayed since I was a little girl. And I felt a feeling of peace come over me. And I just prayed the whole way, like, God, walk with me, and I just kept telling myself, Stacey, look forward, don't ever look back. So going back to when I was married, so I've always believed in God, and I knew, and so it told me right then that if there's something so evil in this world, there has to be something as equally as good somewhere. Those were my thoughts. I still didn't give my life to the Lord. I didn't, but I would continue to go to church some days, and I always believed. I continue to use throughout my marriage. It would put me in a meth psychosis after a day or two. I was in a psychosis. I really was losing my mind. I felt like I didn't even feel like I had a mind anymore. Like it was just gone. I was fried. I end up going to prison. I got out, and it wasn't long before I started using again. And I went into, like, my probation called me one day, and I was high, so I thought it was all like a setup, a conspiracy. So when I went to probation the next day, I just walked in, and before she could even shut the door, I was like, hey, I've been smoking dope, and I don't care what you do to me. Like, going back to prison sounds like a vacation. Like, I'm not going to do your counseling, because she had at one time been my drug counselor. And I just told her I got nothing out of those classes, and that if you've been to one rehab, you've been to them all, because that's how I used to think. And she just asked, Stacey, what would help you? And I told her, what I thought would help, which was church and my church activities. So she didn't send me back to jail. And I actually moved out of my hometown. I got a really good job. I had a great place to live. I had a great relationship with my son and my family. I was making good money, and I thought that I was happy. But still, I continued to relapse once a month. And even though I hated everything that came with it, I hated the way it made me feel. I hated everything about it, but I just, for some reason, could not stop going back to it. And I had relapsed, when was it? In April of last year. And it was just, it was really bad. I was very suicidal, because I didn't really care about what the damage I was doing to myself. It was the pain and the hurt that I was causing everyone around me, my children, my friends. So I was very suicidal. I didn't think my life would ever be any different than what it was. So I was at a friend's house, and I heard a freight train, and it sounded like a good time to me. So I marched down the railroad tracks straight for this freight train, and something told me, Stacey, it's not over. I clearly heard that. So I got off the tracks, and I walked about a half a block, and I seen a group of men that I knew, praying. And I didn't join them. For one, I couldn't believe it. And my friend told me later that they had all, they were praying for me. And I walked around town for a couple days out of my mind. I hadn't used drugs in a long time, but like I said, I could never bounce back. Like when I would use, it would take me a month to recover. And then by the time I recover, I would use again. So I went to a rehab in my hometown. And for the first week, I just laid around because when you would go to class, they'd want to know your goals. And I didn't have any goals because at that time, I didn't even want to live anymore. And then the more I started going to class, I had 4 God-fearing women as counselors. It was a secular rehab, but they all had were recovering drug addicts, and God had played a part in their lives, and they were not ashamed to say that. So, so I started getting up. I started watching sermons on TV of different pastors, and every time, everyone was like they were talking to me. So we were trying to figure out like what was my plan for when I left there, and I always felt in my life that I was just something was missing, and my cousin actually worked at the rehab, and she helped me, and we called a lot of like sober living places out of town, and I was always getting told no, like, because I had been suicidal in the last couple months. There was always just, everyone was telling me no, and I really was getting discouraged. I didn't know what I was going to do, and she's like, hey, there's this place called Crossroad in Richmond, Indiana. Have you ever thought about just leaving here and relocating? And I was like, yeah. So I called here and talked to Joni, and she told me that they had a bed for me. And a couple weeks later, I arrived, and as soon as I got out of the car, I had felt the presence of God. And then I met Joni and Donald, and they are hardcore recovering drug addicts. They've been there, done that, and things really started happening very quickly. Like I said, my soul was so damaged, and my mind and my heart was so broken that I didn't really think there was ever going to be a chance that I would be any different. And God straight healed me, and I just surrendered. Because at this point, if you can see people around you, like Joni, and how she used to be and how she is now, and that was such an inspiration, and I wanted that. So I surrendered, and God straight healed my soul. He saved me. I would feel this this overwhelming peace and joy and love that made no sense to me. Like, where's this coming from? And I've had several God encounters in the beginning, and I think God knew that I just needed that. You know, people would speak to me when I would go to churches, and us not know each other. And God told me to tell you, and only God would know, you know. So I would pray every day for God to restore. I never really thought my son would ever talk to me again, because really, I've been doing this his whole life. He was very upset and very hurt, and I just thought there was no way that relationship would ever be restored. But I would pray every morning for God to restore that relationship. And It took a few months, but God is faithful. Any prayer that I have prayed and asked for, God has God has given me that and has blessed me. So He restored my family. He restored my relationship with my son. I'm now in my granddaughter's life, and God has totally changed my life. And there's so much freedom in Jesus Christ. Like, I'm just not even the same person. And I had an experience where I got high off of God, and it was better than any needle or pipe I'd ever. It was the best. It's like the best drug ever. And yeah, here I am. So I just give all a lot of verses that stuck through, like was Jeremiah 29:11, where hold on, what I have plans in the future, and I stood on that verse. I also stood on Joel 2:25, what I will repay what the locust stole from you. So that's, I would just pray every morning for restoration, and He's just been so faithful and so good to me, and the evidence of His goodness is all over my life. Yeah, so I just want to tell as many people as I can what He's done for me. If He can do it for me, then He could do it for you.